We're at Allendale, South Carolina, and this is April 13th, 2023. These are demonstration plots planted by Clemson University in cooperation with the South Carolina Forage and Grazing Lands Coalition and the USDA and RCS. These plots were planted the first week of November 2022. This particular region can be very dry in late fall months. This year, we also experienced a cold snap that is uncommon, bringing temperatures down into the teens. This demonstration plot might help us answer some questions about what might be good to plant late in the season in a warm season environment where the primary forage crop is going to be a forage perennial such as Bahia or Bermuda grass or another warm season species. This happens to be coastal Bermuda grass here, and you can see that, again, even as early as we are in April, the coastal Bermuda grass is already coming up. First plot is Gore wheat, and that did not establish very well. It's quite short. Next to that is triticale, which it didn't do very well either. Probably needed more time before it got cold. This is a bruisey rye, which looked like it established it quite well and has a good abundance of growth. Winter grazer rye is quite similar, probably a little bit shorter than the Abruzzi. Neither of these have been grazed, so we don't really have a measurement of which one would be a better performer as far as regrowth. The next set of plots are rye grasses. First one is Passerelle Plus. Next to that is Marshall. Adjacent to that is Lone Star. From the amount of seed heads, you can tell that Lone Star is an earlier maturing variety than Marshall. Another variety, River Ryegrass. Next to that is Attain, and Attain, being a tetraploid, is wider leafed. Next to that is Big Boss. Adjacent to Big Boss is Rapido. This is a very good example of the distinction between a very early variety and medium maturing varieties. If you notice all the way down through to the telephone pole, you can see that the Rapido is very much earlier than Big Boss and Attain and the other varieties. Adjacent to that is Prine. Prine does look like it is also earlier. There was a plot of radish, and because of the cold temperatures, the radish did die. That is not always the case in this area. Next to that is Durana white clover, and you can see there's quite a bit of volunteer ryegrass in these, but the white clover is down there. Now it's not very tall. It's it's like what you would expect out of white clover. It's not going to get real tall, and there's not going to be a lot of biomass on it. In contrast, this is balansa clover, and the balansa, as we walk out in it, it's approximately approximately knee high, and it's in its prime right now. It's going to be growing quite rapidly. This is red clover, the variety Southern Belle. And if we look in here, we can see some red clover plants, and they have the distinguishing markations of red clover. And those plants are here and there. This particular plot might be a bit challenging to grow red clover. Adjacent to the red clover are two crimson clover plots, AU Sunrise and Dixie. This is why crimson clover is so popular in the south, because it grows quite well, and it grows very comfortable along with other grasses. And the crimson clover is abundant in these plots, and it's about 2 feet tall. There's plenty of pollinators. You can see the bee activity, and that's why crimson clover is, again, one of the easiest and most popular legumes. Next to it is a legume that gets a lot of talk, not a lot of volume of use, but ball clover. Ball clover is it's pretty impressive when you see it. It's quite abundant in its patches, and ball clover seems to be very well adapted to the south in general. Another one that's well adapted to many southern regions is arrowleaf clover. This is Apache. And as we walk through here, the Apache is between 1 foot and 2 foot tall. There's a nice patch of Apache. Has a distinguishing arrowleaf type leaf with looks like an arrowhead. Adjacent to it is frosty berseem clover, and the berseem clovers, again, they have a very distinguished, unique look. They're a very unique look, and so this is a good example of a berseem plant. In this particular set of plots, the berseem is there. It's not anywhere as prolific as, for instance, as the crimson clover or even the arrowleaf clover. And again, that might be some of the limitations that it just has in this particular soil. Next to it is a set of alfalfa plots, and alfalfa is a crop that is a perennial crop, and in the south, it's one that there's still a lot of work that kind of needs to be done on it. Now, this is what's kind of interesting. If you're just looking at comparisons, everything was planted here the same time, same conditions, and as we pan from right to left, then we come over to this set here, and there are 2 hairy vetches, a winter pea, and a mix that includes them all, and it's just ridiculously different. This is VNS hairy vetch. This is Patagonia hairy vetch, and if we walk out into this, it is well over knee high. It is just, it's what it does. It's excellent biomass. This is fantastic producer of nitrogen. It's great for cover crops, for use as a grazing crop. There are limitations and the way to utilize this in a grazing situation. It's a little bit more complex than utilizing any of these other species, but it can be done. And next to it is Austrian winter pea, which is also looks fantastic. Again, real similar to the hairy vetch as far as the, the height of the biomass. Um, and these are excellent when used in a mix like this adjacent um, plot here, where you've got vetch and you've got peas and you've got oats and ryegrass. As a whole, again, if you're just looking at just where do you get the most biomass in this type of scenario, it would come from the vetches and it would come from the rye, with probably the ryegrasses fitting in there as well.